Magic Johnson and Larry Bird had a huge impact on the NBA. One could even argue that they made the league what it is today.
You crazy. I said, you crazy. I'm not shooting no commercial with Larry.
So if there's one thing you can't argue about in basketball, it's that Johnson and Bird are the most important figures in NBA history.
Before these two, basketball was a sport. After, it was a religion. Yes, the game has definitely changed. There's no denying that. But let's be damn sure we never forget that these two are the guys who changed it.
Okay, I know y'all think I'm skipping over a lot of GOATs for this argument, but just hear me out. Before these two became the iconic duo that they were, the NBA was a very different place. These guys paved the path for even the average player to earn millions in the game. Before these two came along, the average salary for an NBA player was $200,000. I'm not gonna lie, those are pennies compared to what players are earning these days. And we owe it all to Bird and Johnson for making the game exciting enough to get paid the big bucks.
Keep the game the way you found it, and it can go on for generations to come. Thank you.
Too many people forget to give these two the credit that they deserve. This is why I wanted to take some time out today and dive into how these guys turned the league on its head. Now, I know most of you have a big question on your minds. Did they have that big of an impact? If I'm being honest, yes. They did affect the whole game that much. See, basketball's a spectacle. And sure, people love to watch the occasional game or two. But until these two came along, there wasn't any drama in the league. The only thing that mattered was making it to the playoffs and hoping to win that year's championship. Now, that sort of thing is fun the first few times. However, it gets old pretty quick. When Magic and Bird came along, they brought a ton of drama with them. Suddenly winning a championship wasn't the only thing that mattered anymore. Beating your rival was the top priority. I mean, the animosity between those two on the court makes even calling them rivals an understatement. Now people had a whole new reason to watch basketball, a reason that transcended sports as a whole. And it was this very drama that allowed the NBA to grow bigger than ever before. You don't just have to take my word for it. A certain NBA legend seems to share my opinion. I'm talking about none other than Charles Barkley. In a new episode of the hit podcast All the Smoke, Barkley talked about how fond he was of the iconic duo and everything they had done for the game.
Magic and Bird, those guys changed the entire trajectory of the NBA and made it what it is today.
Barkley is nothing short of a gem when it comes to the game of basketball. He was around during a period when some of the greatest players to ever touch a basketball played. He was around to witness the different ways in which the league has changed over the years. The biggest change he's witnessed, in his opinion, is how much the average basketball player could get paid.
David Stern's first year, the average salary was $200,000.
According to Barkley, before the impact that Magic and Bird had happened, you couldn't hope for much as a basketball player. However, after these two set foot in the league, the whole system changed up. Suddenly, basketball players earned more than most musicians or actors. They were suddenly more famous too. You have to admit, it takes something special to change up the whole world like that. I'm glad that Johnson and Larry had the impact that they did. It honestly changed the game for the better. Now, you're probably wondering what they did to change the game. Well, they made basketball exciting again. These two stepped onto the court during a time when racial tensions in America were high. People were homeless, had no jobs, and didn't know what to do. Issues in terms of segregation, rallies, and marches were common. The NBA at this point was mostly all African Americans with a select few white folks playing on the court. Thanks to racial tensions, most white people at that time refused to support a sports league dominated by African American athletes. However, when Johnson and Bird came into the scene, they managed to bridge a gap between them and help the world calm down and just watch in amazement. They helped set a new standard in the sport. When these two were on the court, there wasn't much the other players could do but hope that either player's rival managed to outdo them at their own game. Such was their dominance in the league that they would often render opposing defenders useless. as they drained bucket after bucket. The best part was that these two represented the majority of American citizens at the time. They were a part of the American working class, struggling to make ends meet. Now, I know there's another big question on everybody's minds. How did these two hicks from the wrong side of town suddenly make every basketball fan around the world light up with excitement? Well, as I mentioned before, these two possessed skills like no other. That and the fact that whenever their teams played each other in the NBA Finals, it was arguably the biggest game of the season. I'm talking about people who weren't even fans of the teams. Seriously, they'd come just to see Johnson go up against Bird and witnessed who managed to come out on top that year. These two would draw millions to their TV screens whenever their games came on, and hundreds of thousands would attend their games live too. Before these two joined the league, it was a known fact that the NBA was slowly sinking to the bottom of the sports ocean. Somehow, these two threw the NBA a lifeboat and helped them sail into a better future. The best part is, these two were national sensations from their college days. This was a time when such a thing was unheard of. The basketball game where Michigan State faced off against Indiana in the NCAA Championship Final remains the highest-rated college-level game of all time. With everything that's been set up until now, there's probably one last thing you want to be answered. Will there ever be a duo as iconic as them ever again? If I'm being honest, I don't think it's very likely that we'll ever see a duo so dominant and iconic as Bird and Johnson ever again. These two had some of the biggest impacts on the game ever seen in the sport. They paved the way for basketball stars to become what they are today. There's just no denying the fact that if these two hadn't been a part of basketball history, the NBA would probably not exist anymore. Without these guys, the league would go down under a long time ago. So honestly, we should be glad that we were lucky enough to witness a time when two of the greatest basketball players to have ever touched an NBA court played. There have been many players who have gone on to become extremely influential in the game of basketball. However, none have had an impact as big as these two. The fact that they came from such humble backgrounds and managed to blossom into something so awesome is just insane. Even after he's retired, Magic Johnson continues to spread positivity and love.
Clap 3 times. All right, that's how we do it around here, okay? Also, let's thank all the coaches. Let's do it.
The man has numerous charities in his name and continues to ensure that everybody has a smile on their face. The iconic trash talk that these two would spew at each other during games will forever be etched into basketball legend. I think it's safe to say that these two managed to do the impossible, and we can't thank them enough for it. That was everything about the impact that Magic Johnson and Larry Bird had on the NBA. See you in the next video.